Welcome to the virtual towers of binary Arcadia, where the games go on long into the night. Greetings, BArcadians. So today's video is going to be all about real-time strategy games, the RTS genre as it's known in video games. Rich is of course a massive proponent of RTS games and has loved them all his life. He is the authority on the channel, and I'm going to play interviewer today really, just to try and squeeze all of his wisdom and passion and enthusiasm on the topic. Just to kick us off straight away, just to say guys, please, if you can give this video a like, it would really help to grow and support the channel. It makes a big difference on the YouTube algorithm, and will really get us out there in terms of exposure, so we can hopefully get better and better and keep providing you with better content by extension. So let's do a bit of scene setting first of all. The RTS genre. Well, I've tuned into Wikipedia and this is exactly what it tells me. In an RTS, the participants position and maneuver units and structures under their control to secure areas of the map and or destroy their opponent's assets. Just throw to you, Rich. Do you concur, or would you like to add anything to that description?
I would say yes, but there's also resource gathering. In some games, in some RTS, there's like manufacturing chain organising, so there is some additional components to that, but yeah, for the most part that's pretty much what it is.
So that nailed on, plus a bit of management sim
exactly
stuff,
yeah.
Is in a nutshell an RTS.
Yeah.
So in terms of where the RTS genre started, there's different schools of thought on this. I think Ars Technica would suggest that, is it Don Daglow invented the genre with his influential 1981 Intellivision game Utopia, which essentially pitted two island nations against each other in a war. So I suppose if you base that on that initial description, it kind of fits. However, another school of thought is that the RTS subgenre began in 1989 on a console, ironically enough, as it became a very popular PC genre. And apparently the first real RTS ever released was Herzog Zwei, I think I'm pronouncing that right, correct me if I'm wrong, BArcadians, a Japanese Sega Genesis game made by Technosoft. So yeah, clearly we're not exactly sure on the fundamentals and where it quite emerged.
Reinforcements have arrived. Reinforcements have arrived.
So, although they are seen as like the birth of the RTS genre, Command & Conquer and its predecessor Dune 2, Command & Conquer was really a rehash of Dune 2 realistically. They are seen as the games that defined the modern day RTS and how they worked and how all the things were set and stuff. So they're probably regarded as the almost like the genre defining type games in this genre.
Yeah, I think you could say that the original games we talked about probably, you know, set the ideas in place and gave it a vague shape, whereas Command & Conquer really seemingly nailed every aspect of an RTS down, didn't it, into this complete package that was very satisfying. And
for the most part have stayed very similar, apart from, you know, quality of life features, as you do on most games, to this day really.
This is it. I mean, in terms of what happened with the RTS genre, well, you know, mostly due to the credit of Command & Conquer, in the latter half of the 1990s, the genre exploded and there was copycats all over the shop, and not just copycats to be fair, people trying to do different things as well. They were a very popular genre, again, mostly on the PC. But I think, again, according to Ars Technica, during the 2000s, or as the millennium dawned, it started to stagnate, and yeah, interest certainly lulled in the genre. It became, again, less mainstream and more of a, you know, a cult following around the genre.
Yeah, I mean,
Rich, anything more
it sort of
to that?
it went from like a mainstream to almost like a niche, and it was being played less and less, apart from people who were diehards like myself, and also, we at this point we'd had, I don't know, 7 Command and Conquers or something stupid, including Red Alerts, Tiberian Sun, etc. We'd had like 2 or 3 Age of Empires, and we were well deep into games from all different studios. So it sort of makes sense why it would stagnate a little bit. I still loved them at this point, but I get why people were they were falling out of favour. Obviously, technology and stuff was moving forwards, and what was quite a simple premise of a game, games were getting much more technically advanced, so maybe that was a reason.
I wonder, Rich, because, as we've seen a couple of RTS games, well, certainly when they leapt up to 3D, to full 3D RTS games, I mean, the PC you'd need to run them at a good level of performance, it could get pretty hairy, couldn't it?
Yeah.
I think one game specifically that comes to mind, is it Supreme Commander?
Yes.
That looks hugely demanding, and I'm pretty sure I've heard, that it can be because of the amount of units on screen and the kind of epic scale it's on. And I think that, that kind of was a barrier to entry because, well, one, you're going to have to sink a massive amount on a PC and, pretty much just for one specific genre of game. So, that's asking a lot, isn't it? You've got to really be in love with the genre to do that. It's not really for the casuals, is it?
Absolutely. I think generally, apart from I think maybe the original Command and Conquer, which appeared on in Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation, I don't believe that any really went over to consoles, which, like you say, you're niching yourself into PC only, and in this day and age, that's sort of a killer. Especially if you need a very powerful PC, which, they're not that common really.
This is it, and just a comment on the port to the PlayStation. I'm pretty sure I played it, Command & Conquer on the PlayStation,
Really? Oh,
and
cool.
on the old D-pad, rough as.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It was not easy to play, not a joy by any means. I think, the console RTS games, it's come a long way, isn't it? I think Halo Wars is that one.
Yes.
More recent times.
It looks good. I've not played it, but I've always thought I really should play that, but I've not played it. I think it was quite popular. Recently looked at purchasing that actually on the PC. Yeah, I was like, oh, should I get it? And then I didn't.
Yeah, I think they've done a good job at trying to map the controller and make it work in a much more free-flowing manner, because I think that's super important for an RTS game, isn't it? You need that kind of quick reflex control over your troops and your units. So yeah, Rich, probably a good time, as good a time as any, just to kind of rattle off a few of your favourite RTS games of all time and maybe give us a little scoop of insight into the reasons why.
So my all-time favourite RTS game is sort of the one that birthed them all. So is the original Command and Conquer. I've recently bought the 20 year anniversary game, I believe, and replayed that, and it's just such a good game. It's such a lot of fun to play. Simple mechanics, easy to get into, very difficult at times, but that gets you to try and be more strategic about what you're doing. It's just such a simple premise of a game, but gives me endless amounts of fun. Lots of other games I've liked. I like the Age of Empires series. That's a really good one. Settlers, I really like that series. Act of War was another good one. I probably the last one I bought was a game called Total Annihilation. As in the last one I bought before I've recently rebought Command & Conquer. Total Annihilation, which was on my old PC, which ran terribly. I had to basically have all the detail on low because my PC wasn't very powerful. And that's an interesting game because that was an interplanetary game. So it was an RTS where you were on a planet, but you could move to other planets. So sort of like mix the genre up a lot. I don't think it was a particularly well-received game.
Or in real time you could move, or was
Yes.
it just you could?
Yes.
Wow.
And actually, you could build these destruction events on planets. So you could take a little planet and build these like rockets on it, which would, have ridiculous amounts of resources required and take ages to build. But then you could fire a planet at an enemy, basically.
Flipping heck.
So you can
That reminds me of a book I read called Ender's Game.
So-
Yeah, space battles basically.
But you can understand sort of why it was so hardware intensive. You've got a planetary system, and you can literally go from one planet to the other. You can send units from one planet to the next, and obviously you can zoom right out from the solar system all the way into the sort of the land of a planet. So that was a cool game. But I feel like it didn't do amazingly well, which was a shame. But I believe you can still play it now, so if you are interested in that, definitely go and play that. But yeah, so that's sort of my games that I've played and enjoyed.
What was that game that I feel? Obviously, played a lot of Command and Conquer with you back in the day, but then you bought a game. It was more small. It was more on a micro scale. You had maybe just a small kind of almost squadron of troops. Was that Act of War?
Act of War, yes. No, that was...
Or Company of Heroes?
No, Company of Heroes, I believe you bought me one Christmas, I think.
That's why I know it.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that was good. Commandos was similar to that kind of game. Yeah, there's just loads of them. There's just loads of really good games,
I think, well, for me personally, I think I've always preferred them when it's on more of an epic scale, and you've got a lot of different troops, units to manage, rather than just kind of smaller, more covert squad missions. But games like Command and Conquer scaled that, didn't they, in terms of the mission design?
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas, yeah,
I mean,
think that's the beauty.
some missions on Command and Conquer, you'd have one troop. You'd have like a commando, and you'd have to do the whole mission with one person. So yeah, it's interesting. It's I really like the game. So yeah, move us on, Tabs.
So yeah, I think in the next section, I really just wanted to delve a little bit into what it takes to be good at RTS games, and this perhaps also informs how they can benefit you as well. I think we've talked before. We've done a piece previously on how video games are good and positive things, and how they can help you develop in terms of your mental acuity. But to help us set the scene on this, I wanted to reach back in time to one of the world's greatest generals, arguably, of all time, and that is Napoleon Bonaparte. So for any history buffs out there, I hope you enjoy this. I've just got a few stats to rattle off for us. Apparently, of his 43 listed battles, he won 38 and lost only 5. He overcame difficult odds in 17 of his victories, which I think is mental, really, and commanded a disadvantage in all 5 of his losses. I got this information from Towards Data Science, just in case you wanted to know. A quote I quite liked of Napoleon's was, "I am never angry when contradicted. I seek to be enlightened." So, not sure if that was true of him or not. He was a ruthless dictator, and I wouldn't have liked to have crossed him. Anyway, so yeah, this is a little write-up on Napoleon's acumen, I suppose, which made him especially efficient as a general in his time. So apparently Napoleon had an unbelievable range of intellectual ability. His power of concentration was enormous, as was his memory for detail and facts. It's argued that when on campaign in 1805, one of his subordinates could not locate his division, and while his aide searched through maps and papers, the emperor informed the officer of his unit's present location, where he would be for the next 3 nights, the status and resume of the unit's strength, as well as the subordinate's military record. And this was out of an army with 7 corps, a total of 200,000 men, with all the units on the move. He also possessed an incredible capacity for work. He continually worked an 18 to 20 hour day, which that is just
insane.
amazing. I know. And when necessary, he could work for up to 3 days without rest. He took great interest in even the smallest measures under his command and used his mental abilities to think out military problems days or even months in advance. And more importantly, he possessed the ability to inspire other people. This was taken from NapoleonSeries.org, by the way. So Rich, with that as a scene setter to perhaps help inform some of your kind of wisdom and advice, what does it take to be really good at an RTS game?
Oh, there's a question. To be honest, it's all about management. So, but it's almost like multifaceted management. You've got to manage your resources, because without your resources and your resource gathering, you're not going to be able to build the units which are going to protect your base and help to build your base. You've also got to keep a watchful eye on the enemy. Because preparing for an attack is probably better than having to quickly think how you can then deal with the attack. I always think it's good. Most of these games have like a fog of war, so you can't see when an enemy's coming. But I like to send some units out, just single infantry units, cheap units that you sacrifice in order to open up the fog of war, so you can sort of see when an enemy's coming basically and prepare thereafter.
That's what I find quite impressive. When I've watched you play, you're regularly snapping back and forth with like an elastic grip on the resource management back at base, developing new troops, keeping that safe and defended. You're also scouting on the map to, as you say, unlock this fog of war so you can see what's going on. And even at times you can be handling 2 separate kind of skirmishes with different units in 2 different parts of the map. And obviously you usually have a mini-map, don't you, in the top right, where you can jump to locations nice and quickly. You can. But that's what I find particularly impressive. You're spinning all these plates, aren't you, all at the same time, and you're having to remember, like Napoleon, all these specific circumstances.
Exactly, and I think one of the most important things with all of these games is working out what your opponent favours in terms of their units, and working out... Because the thing is, if someone sends a flame tank to your base and you're trying to kill that with infantry, well, that's just going to kill your infantry instantly. So it's good to work out what they're favouring in terms of their units and use the best counter unit for that. So, if they're sending infantry, you use flame tanks. If they're sending flame tanks, you're going to want to use tanks of some sort. So yeah.
I think there's often a rock, paper, scissors, isn't there, type of relationship between those units, as you say, because you're constantly trying to wield it to get the upper hand. Just on that, what's your favourite unit then? Or maybe you've got a few from various games.
So, absolutely my favourite unit is the Mammoth Tank from GDI in the original Command & Conquer. For 2 reasons. It's massive, obviously being called a Mammoth Tank. It's got dual turrets on the front, so it fires 2 shots at a time. It also has like a side arm that can fire like, I don't know, they're like rockets, I guess, so that can attack air units and also infantry, and it's just a brilliant piece of kit. And it's actually featured in a number of games thereafter. It's featured in probably all of the original Command & Conquer series, so Tiberium Sun, etc.
It's the BFG, isn't it, of Command & Conquer,
yeah,
I think.
Basically, yeah. But yeah, so that's probably my favourite unit. I also really like Tanya from Red Alert. I think she was allied, I think. But yeah, she was just...
She's like a hero figure, is she? One of these hero characters.
She has like a gun. She's like a sort of a James Bond style character, single shot kills on infantries. She can set bombs in buildings so that they instantly blow up. And really liked her as a character. So I think those are probably my 2 favourite characters. Do you have any favourites, Tabs? I know you've not played the games massively, but...
I love the Tesla coils from, was it Red Alert?
Yeah.
They were
Tesla
always
tanks.
dead fun. Yeah, just because of the way destroyed. They were just gruesome and graphic, weren't they? Really.
The animation.
They like atomize like soldiers or melt them or something.
Yeah. So when a Tesla like base defense hits, or a Tesla tank hits an infantry, it would like. You could like see their bone structure, and then they would die. It's really cool little animation. I really like that. But
we'll try and flash it up now for everyone to see. But yeah, it's certainly makes it a bit quirky, doesn't it?
Definitely.
But I think, I mean, we'll come back to this perhaps later on. But a huge game of mine that I think you can just about squeeze into the RTS genre was Dungeon Keeper, which was actually something of a hybrid of an RTS game, a management sim. And there was even some FPS elements in there as well. You could basically possess any unit in your army of demons, minions, and control them essentially. But I would say either the bile demons from that, which were these big fat demons from hell with horns that would float around and they basically drop massive loads of farts when they were in battle with other. With the good guys, because you played the bad guys, and that would be how they killed them basically. But the other one was dark mistresses from that game that were basically BDSM oriented like demon ladies who they were just beastly in battle. They could absolutely engulf your enemies. But very interestingly, you had a torture chamber in that normally you would torture captured opponents, and you could sometimes convert them to your side essentially. But the Dark Mistresses, just for fun in their spare time, like to go in the torture chamber and get whipped continuously. And it would be good for their morale because they were these twisted BDSM things. So yes, again, a lot of quirkiness there. But yeah, just to bring us back on track then, I mean, let us know, BArcadians. I personally think I've got Total War. I think we should set up a fight between Rich and Napoleon, just to see, who is the ultimate general. I know in Total War it's based around historic battles. I'm sure we could set up something that would offer Rich a worthy challenge. So Rich, you'd be game for that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure all the BArcadians would like to see me lose emphatically on a game I've never played before.
You would win eventually, but yeah, maybe we could do a bit of a part about seeing where you how you overcome him. But yeah, certainly BArcadians, drop us a comment if you'd like to see that, and we'll look to get something put together for you. So, kind of rounding this video up a little bit more then, Rich. Part of the reason why we wanted to make this video is that there's a feeling there, isn't there, between us that there could be something of a resurgence of the RTS genre on the horizon.
Absolutely.
Would you like to tell us a bit more about that?
So we've mentioned that in the late sort of in the 2000s, sort of the RTS genre sort of fell away, but in recent years, with the invention of games like Clash of Clans and various games that are similar to like that you can get on iOS devices, Android devices. I think you can actually play it through Facebook even. Strategy games as a whole seem to have increased in their popularity. And I think on the back of this, we've seen a movement by studios to bring back RTS games. And I'm pointing this one towards the fact that so last year we had Microsoft released the Age of Empires 1 and 2 definitive editions, which have had a significant overhaul. They also announced late last year of this year, 2020, they're going to release a new Age of Empires 4. We also heard last year that EA are going to remake the original Command & Conquer and Red Alert with a remake, which is really cool. I have mixed feelings about that, but we'll come back to that later. And I feel like, and that as well, Commandos 2, the rights to that have also been bought by somebody, and that's going to be remade with HD graphics and out in 2020. So there seems to be a movement towards these RTS games coming back into favour, and I do think that is on the back of strategy games becoming more popular through these more simple strategy games.
Well, yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit before the video, haven't we, Rich, about these potential mobile/Facebook RTS experiences, often diluted down, acting as a bit of a gateway drug to, you know, the more full fat experiences we've talked about. Yeah, I think that's definitely a potential insight into why. I mean, wasn't it EA? Was it like last E3? Or the year before, didn't they they were going to re-release something Command and Conquer, and it ended up being like a bit of a crappy mobile offering.
Yeah, so they basically said, "Oh, amazing news! We've got a new Command and Conquer in the works." And everyone was like, "Oh, amazing! It's going to be brilliant." Well, it just turned out to be rubbish. It was full of microtransactions. It wasn't like the proper Command and Conquers at all. It was. Yeah, it was universally panned, certainly from everything I've seen and read about it. And it's interesting that, I mean, it seemed like it was just a cash-in, unfortunately. Well, certainly that's how it felt to me. But it's interesting on the back of that. I don't know whether they've listened to people's thoughts on that.
I was going to say, I think that the big flood of feedback has turned the tide, because it was just they weren't reading the market well enough, because they've got this demographic which really enjoys the mobile Facebook sort of experience, and then you've got the hardcore who have always loved RTS games, love the full fat experience. Well, it's like they've tried to make something, you know, for both, but without actually.
But it's never going to happen.
The casual gamers don't know what Command and Conquer is, do they? No. They don't care for the genre. So all they're really doing is trying to get the people who are already interested in full fat RTS experiences into a mobile game. And I don't think there was an audience there for that. So what they need to be looking to do is to harness that kind of casual audience, don't they? And bring that into the fold of full fat experiences. And perhaps, well, as you say, you know, that could be on the horizon for us.
Absolutely. I think 2020 is going to be a very big year for RTS and strategy games as a whole. You know, we've got Desperados coming out, like I say, Commandos 2 remake coming out. We've got a new Command & Conquer, a new Red Alert, a new Age of Empires. There's loads of simulation sort of management sims coming out this year. It's going to be a big year for strategy games. I'm actually surprised, given where the genre is. I'm actually surprised at how many games. Like, you could very easily rattle off a list of 20 games that are coming out this year that are on this genre.
Yeah, that is surprising, I would say. And if the rumours are to be believed, that things like the Steam and Epic Games Store are going to be compatible with the likes of Xbox Series X, well, you know, there's a lot of opportunity there, isn't there? And as we know, games as a service is really coming into the fore in terms of, well, Sony have an offering, Microsoft do, of course Stadia's there as well. Those services where you essentially pay money to have a monthly subscription to a library of games, well, they open up options. They get people playing games that perhaps they wouldn't have paid £50-60 for, because it just wasn't worth the risk. But if you've got the library there and you just want to delve and try different things, who's to say that RTSs couldn't come back into the fore? Because there's obviously almost an underground interest there, isn't there? With I mentioned to you, Rich, a work colleague of mine, he loves this Battleship game on his iPad, adores it, plays it for hours on end. And you know, they are in their fundamentals RTS experiences.
Absolutely. And including the subgenre of management sims, such as the Sim Cities, the Theme Hospitals, what else have we got in that list? The Sims, I guess, almost is a sort of RTS strategy game. You could claim. So there's lots of subgenres almost of the RTS games now.
Yeah, I definitely think management sims are their own bag, aren't they, these days, and very popular. But yeah, I like it when they try different things and they kind of hybridize these experiences. As I mentioned, games like Dungeon Keeper, I'd love to see that remade properly. I think they attempted to, didn't they? But I'm pretty sure that EA again monetized the hell out of it and ruined the experience.
I feel like there's a theme.
But no, just to wrap us up, Rich, a big thank you to you for lending me the hooky copies of Command and Conquer Red Alert back in the day, because I did adore that game. I'd watched you play it endlessly, and yeah, it really got under my skin. It's very satisfying to win, isn't it? To overcome a mission and its difficulties, and to get that win. It's a great feeling of accomplishment.
Absolutely. I think that's the thing about it. It's a struggle playing the games, and there's a lot of thought goes into what you're doing, but actually completing a mission is so satisfying. It feels like it's actually worthwhile. I really like that about it. You feel like you've earned the victory, so to speak.
And then what would you like to see next then, Rich? I mean, you've obviously got what RTS games offer. How would you like to see the genre perhaps change or grow?
So Age of Empires 4, I think that's going to be a big game this year. I think that looks like it's doing a lot. Graphics look incredible. It looks like it's going to move that collection of games on quite nicely. It looks like it's going to be a nod to the original, but with plenty of new stuff added in. I really like the idea of that, and it looks like, contrary to what probably we would have thought, the timelines of Age of Empires would have suggested that this new game, given the fact that we've sort of gone, I can't think off the top of my head, but they've sort of moved to the next sort of timeline each time the game's moved on. You would think that this next game would be set in sort of World War I era. But they've not done that. They've stuck with a medieval setting for it, which I think is cool. I think I like that. So I'm excited for that, and I'm excited to see what they can do to change the game. They were talking about they've got lots of new things in there, lots of new mechanics and stuff, which are going to really turn the game into something a bit even better. So that's really cool. One thing I have to say I'm not as excited about, and probably comes as somewhat of a surprise, is the remake of Command and Conquer and Command and Conquer Red Alert, the two original games from the series, or certainly from the Twilight, Tiberium Twilight saga and the Red Alert sagas. I sort of wish they weren't doing this. I've seen the gameplay videos and I think they look cool, but they don't look much different to the original, really, and it looks like all of the missions are going to play out the same. Unfortunately, it feels like a bit of a cash grab. They're very popular games, and they're quite difficult to play on Windows 10, which I found. The only way, even if you buy and download the 20-year, or is it 30-year anniversary? I can't think which one it is. The original ones on that series, they don't really work on Windows 10. You have to get a patch, a custom patch from the internet to make them work. So this will give an option for people to very easily play the original games, but I just wish we've not had an amazing Command & Conquer for some years, and I just think rather than spend the time remaking those games, just let's have a new game. Let's move the saga forwards.
They're probably testing the audience again, aren't they? If it's successful, then no doubt they probably will invest in a proper new experience. But yeah, I mean, it's EA, isn't it, mate? I don't know if they ever make the best decisions, with the interests of gamers at heart. It's, as you say, it's all about the money.
I feel like I'm coming across as a negative Nancy there, but I'd like to see something new, something that excites me, because I don't know what it is. But actually, I know everything about this game. I know all of the missions. I know all of the foibles of it and stuff. So it's a game I've completed maybe 10 times. So,
it's going to be a tour of nostalgia, isn't it, for you? And
yeah,
not much else,
and I think
really.
also I've literally this in the last 6 months I've recently replayed the original Command & Conquer and the original Red Alert, and really enjoyed it. But obviously that is a scenario where they're even more fresh in my mind. So yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that one, although we'll see what comes in the next few months to see what else they're bringing. So yeah.
Talking about the evolution of the genre, I mean, we did hear, didn't we, with Stadia, Rich, and the cloud computing, that had potentially, what's the word? Superb implications on the, you know, what an RTS could be like. They said things like, well, you could essentially have, you know, hundreds, thousands of players who get to, you know, who will be playing as individual units. Within, you know, any particular battlefield, and you could still have other players who are commanding generals on top of that. So that to me would be a real opportunity with their unique infrastructure and hardware, cloud-based, to do something really special with it. But the problem is, it's, you know, it's, again, if there's no audience there, or if they're not sure there's an audience there, is it worth the investment to experiment with something like that? Could be a chicken and egg situation, but I think that could be a potential avenue for really moving the genre on with something exciting. And yeah,
I mean, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? I think probably the biggest problem with that as we stand today is that Stadia is a struggling platform, from what I've read. But the premise of that sounds amazing. You know, this collective, almost like one thought, you know, many minds doing the work, so to speak. I think that sounds like an amazing idea, and actually I would be on board with that, definitely.
Yeah, I'd love that. Like, you could have armies of maybe 5 to 10 players, so you can each act as, like, you know, generals on a macro level, you know, kind of ordering different units and having your own specialist infantry, whatever. But within that, much like Dungeon Keeper, you can also go in to possess individual, you know, units to actually play them almost like FPS style or even third-person style, which, you know, by extension, sort of makes that particular unit a bit of a hero, because you actually are controlling them yourself, and you can do a bit more damage with them. You can be a bit more efficient with them in battle. And I just think it could, you know, could play out as one of these really addictive online experiences, much like, you know, you get Overwatch, you know, experiences like that. They're essentially strategy games, as well as being FPSs. I think there's you know, a gap there. There's a niche there that could be wielded, but whether we'll see it, who knows? As you say, Stadia seems to be going down the pan, doesn't it? Put it bluntly.
But we know that we're going to be moving to cloud gaming at some point in the future, whether it's another 5-10 years away or whatever. I think that would be amazing. I think that would really push this genre to sort of its limitations, really. So I think that would be amazing.
Fantastic. Well, I think we've about done that one to death. Rich, any final closing statements from yourself?
No, I would say if you are interested in RTS games and you're not sure what you should go and play, the two games that outside of the Command & Conquer series that you should go and play is Total Annihilation, because it's different, and a game called Original War, because again it's a different take on the RTS, and both are wonderful fun. So if you're looking for some RTS games that maybe you haven't played, go and play those two, they're brilliant.
Fantastic. And as I've already stated a couple of times, Dungeon Keeper for me. Try and get your hands on the original Dungeon Keeper. I think even the second one was still pretty darn good. Great little hybrid of RTS, management sim and FPS, with a very devilish sense of humour to boot. So yeah, should we wrap this one up, Rich? I think, as we said at the start of the video, BArcadians, please do drop this video a like. It really will help to expose the channel to more people, who in turn will help to grow the channel and improve our content by virtue of. So, but thanks again for all your support. If you like what Rich and I put out, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications, and we'll see you next time. But I think that's about it for now. Another one for the archives.
Stamped and completed.